Wait. Before we start, just want to make sure we're clear here. While this podcast talks about sobriety, mental health, and addiction, it is not meant to replace professional medical advice. Welcome to Sisters in Sobriety.
I'm Kathleen.
And I'm Sonia.
And we're ex-sisters-in-law, brought together in marriage and bonded through our sobriety journey.
Join us as we talk sobriety, addiction, and everything in between. You're in for quite a ride. And our Substack is buzzing with amazing content, from creative mocktail recipes to insightful courses and reflective exercises. There is something for everyone. Don't miss out. It's a great way to add some extra joy and depth to your journey. Check it out. Welcome to Sisters in Sobriety. Our guest today is Boris Walter, a psychotherapist, hypnotherapist, and meditation facilitator.
Boris brings both grounded realism and deep existential inquiry into his work, blending psychology with philosophy, spirituality, and altered states of consciousness to help people explore who they really are beneath their conditioning. Welcome.
Gee, thanks for the introduction. Sounds pretty accurate.
So, Boris, you didn't start your career in psychology. You were working in a totally different field. So what led you to this work?
Well, one, I do believe that there is like this deep, soulful calling that's almost predestined, like a dharma. And so I find this interesting pathway through childhood traumas that all link to, pushing back against, the system, family, the father, the mother issues from the beginning. Then going hard into the image of this world and they're building their ego. But it's like it always was leading me, I think, towards this moment where nothing would be good enough. Nothing would satiate that feeling of fulfillment. So I was a boilermaker welder working offshore oil and gas. And that was the point where I realized money is not really the thing that's what I'm after. I had probably one of the best jobs you can have as a welder, a tradesman working oil and gas. And I knew there was a moment where I'm like, all right, Boris, if this is you for the rest of your life, working only half the year, 6 months of the year, amazing money, it's a cruisy job. Would you be content? And the answer was no. And so in that moment, I sort of had to think about, well, what would I do with time if money wasn't a thing? And I realized it's just something to do with people, understanding people, behaviors. Plus, I think it's about trying to understand the self as well. I didn't really understand myself. I knew I was lying to myself about what I am and who I am. And I could feel a friction when I'm working. Everyone's just funny and, doing your thing. And this is just me, but it's not really. I could feel a friction on the front line of socializing. And I knew that there was more to me that I was afraid of, if I was to be really honest. And so I was a mystery to myself. And I think so while it looks like I'm going to go and help the world through psychotherapy, I think it was really about, one, understanding my mother when I was very young and she was diagnosed schizophrenic and paranoid. Schizophrenic and then psychosis. And then really then understanding myself, who am I really? So it was just about, I think, discovering myself. And I knew that this was it. I wasn't an academic though. I knew I couldn't write an essay for the life of me, but I knew that I had to go to university and do psychology. That's all I could really think about. And it felt like I had to more than I'll try it out. I was like, I have to do this. And that's the beginning of when I felt compelled by something higher than myself, that something else was in control, that was guiding me along the way. So psychotherapy eventually led to private practice and then hypnosis, and hypnotherapy is where everything just changed immediately. The very first client just started going into areas that I hadn't studied for or about, had no reference points to. And it just took me in a direction I didn't expect.
Kathleen, that's like you.
Mm-hmm. It is like me. Yeah. I also was I'm a psychotherapist as well, Boris. And I went back to school when I was 42. I was in marketing and public relations. And I really understand that feeling of it wasn't even a try. It was I have to do that. I have to do this. And that question of, if I was doing what I was doing before for the rest of my life, would I be fulfilled and satisfied? The answer was absolutely no. But it's interesting because if I ask that question now, I mean, the answer is a mostly a yes. Like, there's some things I want to do differently, but I'm in such a different place being a psychotherapist.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and then you look at your past, your childhood, and you start to see that there's a compensation. Like, let's say if I was the psychotherapist when I was a child, maybe I could have understood my mother, maybe I could have understood my father. And if I did,
Mm,
then maybe I could have fixed that thing there or repaired that. And so you realize there was this sort of wounding that created this desire, like this fantasy of the perfect person, that if I could just understand this or resolve this, then my childhood would be a little bit better. But here's the full circle. We get to see it out. And it's funny because it's somewhat then you assume is egoically driven, like, because that's the ego's compensation, really trying to
mm,
fulfill out the fantasy of the child. But at the same time, when you go through an awakening process where you can overcome the ego, that it's not personal, your work isn't personal, um, then you can get on with it in a way that's less egoically driven now. It's like, I'm okay, I finally made it in the full circle where my little boy or little girl would be proud of this is who I was and what I was going to be.
mm,
And now it's no longer the little girl or little boy operating, which means I'm
mm,
not a bad girl or a bad boy if I fail, if I can't heal or fix the mother
mhm.
or aunt, so that's where you resolve it and you're left with this skill set.
So you blend, Boris, psychology with spirituality. What felt missing from traditional approaches for you?
Good question. The mind, look, if we assume, right, that we're trying to help someone be self-aware, we believe that a basic assumption towards healing is self-awareness. So the truth shall set you free in simple terms, right? We lie
Mm,
to ourselves, we repress things, right? So the whole idea of the unconscious or the unconscious exists or the shadow parts of our awareness is because of repression. We repress things. We cannot hold, we cannot bring into our awareness. So we create this unconscious. And so we have this whole shadow realm. But if we're trying to see the ego and trying to understand its complexity, we can't just take vantage points within the mind. So in therapy, we're trying to help someone transcend the ego. We're trying to transcend the mind. But the conversational capacities of the therapeutic room, it sort of keeps you in that dynamic a bit. Um, I found it dragged things out longer than I felt was necessary. You're battling someone's mind, and it's not like we have to make this faster, but it's like something's missing in terms of depth. I felt like we're
mm,
playing games here. And so I really was
mhm,
also feeling a bit guilty. I could hear my lecturer's voice saying, well, that's your ego trying to speed things up and wishing it was just faster. And, you don't have the patience maybe to sit with someone long enough in therapy. And I just felt that there was still something missing. And so I just felt like if you're staying in this social lens, then you're just going to play different vantage points and different trickery. You can just keep tricking yourself in different stories, change the story, but you can't transcend the mind. And so as long as we're in the mind, you can just keep tricking yourself is what I felt. And so I said, we need something that's higher than the mind, to see the mind, to see the ego. And well, then all these psychedelics experiences were coming out. The DMT, the spirit molecule documentary came out on Netflix with the scientist, Dr. Rick Strassman, talking about these spiritual experiences under scientific conditions. And so they had these profound experiences that helped them explain the nature of reality, which consolidated the mind. It consolidated the egoic confusion. And so I knew that there's something more that has to transcend the mind, the egoic frameworks and tricks that we play of stories. And so I knew that that was a pathway, but I didn't know how to experience that. I just knew it was important. But let's just say the hypnosis, I didn't know I was going to bring out a spiritual component to hypnosis or therapy. It just happened from a client just dropping in the way they did, and then ended up seeing their entire world through hypnosis. Like they could see their entire life. They could see it from a higher intelligence that knew everything about them. And it knew them intimately, emotionally, in a loving way. This person started speaking about themselves in third person, and they started speaking about past lives, other lifetimes that was their own. And they didn't have any past life beliefs. They weren't spiritually inclined. So this was all very weird to me when it all started, but I knew that this was something important. So I was sensible, I was mature. I didn't really just rush into this is true and oh my God, it's changed my beliefs. It was like, okay, pay attention to the outcome. The outcome of this individual who transcended their mind is feeling they are more connected to virtue, which is forgiveness. They had more respect for themselves. They had more respect for others. They wanted to see passing. They let things go with ease. And there was an energy about them after these experiences. And so that perspective we're calling spiritual. And from that lens, it laughs at the games of storytelling and good and evil, right and wrong, changing vantage points, a rescuer, victim, perpetrator, that drama triangle. It just laughs at that stagnation because you see something more than the entire game. And that's essentially spirituality, the adoption of virtue, to forgive all things, to love your neighbor. These are the real spiritual tenets, not just metaphysical aspects of ESP, extrasensory perception, virtue. These people were becoming more virtuous. And so, yeah, that's where spirituality became necessity for me, and to be integrated with psychology.
Boris, were you a spiritual person before this experience that you had with the client, that you saw that this was coming in? Like, did you have a deep spiritual practice before this, or was this something new for you?
No, the first spiritual experience. Oh, look, spiritual. When I was in year 9, I'm going to bring this up. I had a weird fascination for paranormal activity. So it wasn't I don't call that spirituality, by the way. So I had this weird fascination. I would go to the library by myself as a 14-year-old kid, and I would borrow books. I would go to that dusty section of the library that nobody goes to, and look at these books where people were talking about poltergeists and ghost hunters, people going into haunted places. But it was more documentary type books and scientific approaches to these things. So what I learned eventually was parapsychology as well. But I had this weird fascination for it, but that all just shut down in like mid high school. And then maybe 9 years ago, I smoked DMT, dimethyltryptamine, for the first time. I researched it for about a year before deciding that, all right, I'm going to give this a crack. I'm going to try it out. And so I did it with a friend who knew all about it, went to Peru and, did the circuits of ayahuasca and, came back somewhat of a half shaman and wanted to facilitate this process with me. And so I felt safe with him and I smoked this DMT. And let's just say that was the first moment I felt an intimate connection to some intelligent being that was not of this world, that we knew it. So that was this moment where something higher, beyond Boris's logic, had this figure that loved him. And so I found myself in this place with a very loving patriarchal type figure that knew me and I knew it. It's like somehow I was just bowing almost like, and yeah, it just said to me like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing, Boris? And it's like I knew what he was talking about straight away. It's like you're mucking around. You're out here in the drug realm, trying to figure out, whoa, what's reality? It's like you already know. You already know. And it's like I knew what he was talking about in that moment. I was like, wow, yeah. I was like, yeah, sorry. Yeah, he's like, yes, you already know where you are. You know who you are. You know why you're on earth. Get on with it. And it was like, not like punishing. It was like loving. And it's like, just get on with it. You know what you're doing. You know who you are, and just get on with it. I was like, yeah, sorry about that. I'm going to go back. I'm going to get on with it. And so I went back, came back out of it, and it showed me this light as well before I left. It's like half a second of this light that hit me like more than that figure did, like this fraction of a second of light. That's it, I guess what people refer to as divinity or the divine light or God, something of this pure source light. It just was there, woof, hit me. And I couldn't speak for about 10 minutes, not because I couldn't, but because I couldn't find the words to explain what I just experienced. And the first words I said to my friend as he was looking at me, waiting for me to talk, I said, if God exists, I think I just met it. And it wasn't that figure that was talking to me. It was the light that I was referring to, this light. It was very loving, like unexplainable love. I couldn't explain it. It didn't make sense to explain it through the love that we understood on earth. So that happened, and I couldn't unlearn that. I experienced it. Then it sent me on a path to just think, what the hell was that? But I never developed a practice that would actually see me evolve spiritually. It was just this thing that I had in the back of my mind, that experience. And then I think 2019 was when I actually went to my first spiritual workshop, where I felt like an alien there. Like everyone else was fully into it, and I'm like still this rigid sort of scientific mind, very skeptical. Didn't trust too many people as well, but I'm here and I want to be more, and I know there's something more, but can I learn it from you guys? I wonder. So I did a 7-day retreat where they taught us meditation. They taught us about interdimensional spaces. It was 7 days, and it was very raw, very emotional as well. And yeah, that was when I started introducing the small amounts. But by that time, I was already at university. So I just started to slowly introduce these ideas, but I didn't really uphold it. Didn't have many practices as a spiritual person. It's really only when clients started channeling things through them, speaking to me, where they were calling me out. And I felt that I was being watched, and I had a higher purpose that was more than my mind. And so then it was like, it's not even about me anymore. There's something else happening, and I'm just supposed to act it out. And it feels right. And so I started respecting my body a bit more, having practices that would understand the body as a technological device that just transmits and receives. And so if I just optimize my body, it's going to do its job. I don't need to know how long I'm going to be here for. I don't need to know the outcomes of my work. I just know that if I optimize my body, I can control my own emotional state to some degree, less reactivity, less impulsivity, try to be more self-aware. Then I can be a clearer channel. And so, I cleaned up my diet. I was exercising more. I'd started doing more meditations, but this is only because, my clients started channeling beings that were talking to me. And so I could just be a channel for something more than me.
I want to touch a bit on the illusion of identity, actually. Do you think that there is such a thing as a true self? Big question, I know.
Yeah, that's a cool thing, because can we know our true self? You can know it to a certain degree. Let's say the truest self is unknowable. Okay, so the truest self you might be alluding to now, what we understand is the one, the thing, the source of all things, the one idea, God, the universal one mind that says, who am I? And expand itself into infinite fractal dimensions and spaces and vantage points. Here we are on Earth at some level, the third dimension of that fractal expansion into dimensional space. We are very far removed from that one thing, the one mind. So we don't get to know God in its entirety, or the one thing in its entirety, which is the true self. But what you get to know is through incremental acts of courage and experience and learning and growth, you get to know more. You move that veil. The veil is the illusion, right? This is all I am, and the physical world is all that is. And, just I am what I am, right? Just accept your victimhood. The veil is here. But then we're shifting the veil further and further. And you can know more of the self, but it's infinite. So that's my idea on, knowing the true self is not an absolute, but you
Hmm.
can move the veil and further to know more. And when you do move that veil further, what you're doing in higher consciousness is seeing the above law that governs the lower law. So look, the spirit, they say the
Hmm.
transcendental state of mind can see the social plane. It's a higher order law, you know? And so that fractal nature, you get to shift the peg, shift that veil further and further,
Hmm.
and you get to know more of the true self. So yeah, that's where maturity comes from. And you see someone less impulsive and more switched on and more loving, more forgiving, maybe. Yeah.
Boris, how do we confuse personality with identity?
Okay, interesting. By definition, the personality is your mask. So the persona, right? The persona is the mask in which you wear to survive socially, simply for the social plane. So here's one domain of existence. It's the social world, the world in which, so the mental world in which we interact with another person, another being, and who I have to be for them, who they have to be for me. I've adapted my mask across time accordingly to be what I think they need me to be and for me to survive as much as I can and gain social value on this social plane. It's the persona. That's the mask. It's the stage play. And so that's where you have personality testings and personality types. This is just describing a mask. It's not the truer version of you. It's not the authentic part of you. It's who you've had to learn to be to gain social value. That's the persona, all right, the
Hmm.
mask. The identity is an ever moving concept that you will hold as stability of the I. Now, I hope I've described that okay and you understand what I mean. So, for my mind or my existence on this earth, for me to have stability, I have to have an identity, right? So I can say, I am a man, or I am a strong person, I'm a good person, I am a whatever, you know. I hold all of these things that create stability of the I, and it's an identity. So that will change across time as I learn more about myself, as I get more courageous. But in a world of infinite personalities, as a young baby, you enter this world, you have infinite possibilities of who you can be and what really is me and what's them. You have to have a stability of an I. Who am I? Am I my mother? Am I my father? You know, everything's an object, and there's this malleability and omnipresence, an omnipotent sort of relationship with the universe. It's all me and it's not me, right? But it's chaotic, right? To feel everyone else's worlds as your own. So for your stability and ability to create longevity in the world of infinite possibilities, you have to have stability of what you think you are. And so people can shift that based on whether they want to be someone else or they have learned something about themselves or they have enough courage to shift that thing. But it's not really something grounded. It's just something that you will construct for stability across time in a social world. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Boris, about hypnosis because I don't practice hypnosis myself in my practice, and I've never actually I've never received hypnosis actually. So where does hypnosis come into your work, and what's happening in the brain during hypnosis?
Okay, so hypnosis was one of the tools that I decided to use when I was trying to transcend the ego. If we're trying to get people
Okay.
to see themselves, what we're trying to do is just transcend the social plane. And so I watched a bit of stage
Okay.
hypnosis, clinical hypnotherapy. And so I realized doesn't matter what they're using hypnosis for, the core principles of hypnosis is that the ego is less valued. Like the ego of all of its sensitivities
Okay.
about their identity and personality becomes malleable and open, right? So whether you're using it for stage hypnosis or you're using it for therapy, it becomes malleable. It's open. Now, what you do with that openness, obviously, there's an ethics around that and infinite possibilities, but that's where the ego becomes less significant. And so there's great potential there. Hypnosis of what's happening, I think, was your second part of the question. It's nothing more,
What's
nothing
happening
less
in the brain?
in the brain. Yeah. You're going in from beta. So right now we're conversation, we're in beta brainwave, and then you'll go into alpha. So if I just did rapid hypnosis or instant induction of hypnosis, where it's like what you'll see on TV or fast-paced stage hypnosis, you're dropping into alpha, which is no different to the flow state as well. When someone's really just in the zone flow, that's alpha. And so the first stages of hypnosis, when someone becomes receptive to it and responsive in rapid succession, they are going into alpha, right? And that alpha brainwave state allows that this dance and flow with reality. There's less friction with things, less questioning of things. You're in it, right? There's a permission and an allowance there. And it's a great place to be. It's great for fast-paced things as well. And if you've got a really good subject for hypnosis, they really trust you. You don't really need to go too deep. You can really play at that level. And I encourage, the more closer you are to beta in the openness of the mind and openness of the heart and expansion of spirituality, the better. It's more easily to integrate if you're on the higher brainwave state. It just means that if I need to take you deeper, so the next one is theta, the brain will go into theta as you go deeper. So if I really start bringing you deeper, lower, everything starts to slow down. And I'll slow my voice down. I will help you feel more safe. That's the permission, by really just helping every part of your body into permission that you're allowed to just be with me right now, and you're allowed to just exist. For all the times in your life do you have to be someone for someone else, right? I'll really start talking to this part of you that's had to develop an identity or an ego or a persona, and I'm just giving you permission to rest that through my voice and the vibrations. And then you'll go into theta, where it's that same thing where you're about to fall asleep at nighttime, right? And that's where you have much more openness there. There's a lot less resistance. There's a willingness to play in creativity, right? That's where you're going to dream states, but you're on that cusp, what they call the hypnagogic state, where it's like hard to tell what's real and what's dream. Like you're starting to live on the content of your mind now. There's less questioning around the content of the mind till you're in full dream state, where you're like in the dream and there's like, I'm being chased. There's nothing more. This place is not more real than the dream state. So the theta brainwave is essentially what most encapsulates the hypnosis for me, where they go really deep. It's just like a full permission to just play in the creative faculty of the mind. And so that's the brain activity. Perception wise is more like, now you're focused so much. So now it's about focus. That's all hypnosis is. You're driving a car and you go through a set of traffic lights, and you're thinking about that argument that you had with your partner. I should have said this, I should have said that. Next time if that happens, I'm gonna, right? In that moment, you're in hypnosis. The same conditions that meet hypnosis under an fMRI and EEG, you're under hypnosis. And what characterizes that? Focus on one idea, so much so that your emotions are in that content, right? So if I was to scan your blood, get the EEG from you driving your car and that argument with your partner, you're just by yourself in your car, but your blood signatures and the brain activity, the heart rate, all suggest that you're in an argument with your partner, right? But you're just white knuckling your steering wheel and you're by yourself. So you're living on the content of your mind. And so that's the creative faculty. So what really is reality we start to play with. It's like a lucid dream, becoming aware in that dream state, but now having levers of self-control, self-analysis, exploration, choice. Yeah.
Okay. So, Boris, what parts of themselves can people access with hypnosis that they can't reach consciously?
It goes all the way to third person type perspectives, what we would call the higher self. It doesn't matter whether you want to call it an angel or a teacher or a guide or an angel, an ascended master. There's all these names we give to a perspective of higher consciousness. What's interesting is that across a lot of these voices, there is consistency of an all-knowing, all-loving, and now I've done over 1,000 of these sessions, and there's always the same themes of like virtue, just let go, let go, let go. There's always a reference that you're not alone, always a reference that this is both insignificant and a little bit significant at the same time, meaning this earthly existence. They always say there's much more than you. It's not even about you, this whole thing. It's like, it's about the higher mind that's governing and evolving itself, like Earth Mother Gaia having her own evolution. That she is going from a teenager to an adolescent. She's evolving and she wants to know more about herself. And there are guides helping her on her journey. And we happen to be a fractal layer of that. And so we're just on the journey of her evolution. And so now there's fractals within you. You have good parts, bad parts, and say the earth has good parts, bad parts. And it's all coming into revelation. We're all seeking deeper truths. So people can access under hypnosis, they can go through these fractal layers of higher knowledge about this earth, about the dimensions, about the nature of reality. So an ontological intelligence that they otherwise don't have. They can acquire knowledge in other lifetimes, other timelines with accuracy. I'm not trying to pursue validation of its realistic nature, but it seems to be that, well, I have been able to validate it through my master's research, and there's plenty of research to say that people are actually acquiring real memories of timelines either 1,000 years ago or 200 years ago with no genetic connection to it. People are accurately describing timelines with names, dates, people, things. And so there is a connection now. We
This
know
is through
that.
hypnosis.
Yeah, hypnosis. Yeah, people
This
are
is through
accessing.
hypnosis.
Yeah, other timelines, other bodies, other memories. And they're under therapy. I'm not saying let's go to a past life. I never have, and I never do. It's funny because I'm known to be the past life guy, but I don't ever prompt anyone to go to a past life. It just happens to go there when the ego is stopped discriminating reality. So if your mind is there, Sonia or Kathleen, and you have no belief in past lives or anything beyond this physical reality, and you have a rigid scientific mind, then so long as you're holding that framework of your identity with what's important, what's real, what's not real, you're going to restrict your capacity for expansion. In the hypnosis, there is a permission given to let go, to be open, to rest, to really submit, surrender. This is faith, the essence of spirituality of faith. And in that letting go of emotional transcendence, you start to feel into other spaces that you didn't even know were there. And if you just keep going with it without judgment, hold your judgment back. It doesn't need your judgment. Just go with it. Go with it. So I'm there holding permission for you and safety to know that it's okay, because you'll start thinking, whoa, what is this? Am I making this up? Where's this coming from? Now I'm seeing this tall figure. It's like he's 8 foot tall. I've never seen this person before, but they're saying they love me and they're watching me, they help me. It's like the mind is a little bit confused, but I'm just encouraging you to stay with it. Or now all of a sudden I'm with this family. I have 2 children. I'm in Germany, and it's the dates feels like it's 1500s or something. Why is this coming to the person? It doesn't matter, right? But the mind, your DNA, is connected to other timelines that seem to have significance or relevance for your own stagnations in this life. So when it comes to trauma healing, if you allow yourself to go deeper into hypnosis, you can heal other timelines that your body is holding, that you didn't physically experience in this body. And all I'm doing is saying, hey, you're allowed to go there if you want.
I know you said it doesn't matter necessarily what it is that's coming up, but do you see those experiences as literal, symbolic, or something else?
Yeah, good question. At the beginning, because I was a scientific mind, I was looking for the literacy of it. I was looking for, is this real? Is it not real? I was fishing for dates, times, people's names. I wanted to know. I wanted make sure I wasn't crazy. I was like, why is this person going there? I don't want to be the crazy therapist that thinks this person's actually dropping into another lifetime when it's just some a fantasy of the ego creating something because it's how it's defending against the severity of the trauma. Created a whole thing. So I didn't want to be that kooky guy that just believed in this is a past life. So I was looking for a lot of dates, times, and I thought it was all literal. I'll give you an example. Once this person's like, they went deep and all of a sudden they find themselves in a duck's body. They're a duck. They're telling me I got feathers. I'm floating. I was like, okay, cool. You're floating and it's feathers. I'm a duck. Okay, I'm duck. What does it feel like? And I'm starting asking questions like, what year is it? Is this a past life? So I'm asking the higher mind, like, what is this to you? And then I got told that's the wrong question by this person's higher mind, this higher intelligence within them that seems to be all knowing in this way, that knew the client speaking about himself in third person is saying, that's the wrong question. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. So I realized the therapeutic element of this is like, just forget it's a duck. There's something about this feeling. It's total presence, mindfulness. This duck holds no memories a second ago. It's living in complete reactivity to resonance and law around it. It's mindful. So this person was experiencing the body and mind of an animal or a species that was ultimately present. And so they got to feel this amazing chemical and emotional state of being of what it's like to be here with no framework of the past or future. And why? Well, why did their mind take them there? Well, it seemed to be important from their higher perspective. This person's constantly plagued by their memories and ruminating and stagnations. And they need to know what it actually feels like to be here. So when they woke up,
Right.
they had a reference point of what it's like to feel present.
So it sounds like it could be both. Is that like
Yeah.
it maybe in some cases is
It can
literal,
be
and then in
both.
other cases,
Yeah, it can be both. And what's important, Kathleen, actually, is it doesn't matter. Therapeutically, it doesn't matter. It'd be different if I was holding a scientific
in
experiment
therapeutically, yeah.
patient, right? Then I'd be going and looking for things and we'd set them up differently. And that's what I had done as well with a particular client. He was willing to participate in more of a scientific experience and we have found amazing things. But the process of what I'm actually there for is not to validate anything in its absolute like specifics. It's more about the themes, about the mental frameworks, the lies, meaning someone's dying in another lifetime 200 years ago, but they were a leader and they failed in war. Somehow their family's been murdered and they are feeling this shame, this guilt, this burden of like, I shouldn't be a leader. I don't deserve to be a leader. So I've had people in these emotional states living out these experiences in timelines and bodies that are foreign to their mind, but they're living out this deep shame and they're on their knees and they're like, and so about to die. And when they die, there's a thought, I'm not worthy of being a leader. I don't want to be a leader. I failed my people. I will fail my people again. So there's a rejection of the self, right? It's the opposite of love. It's the opposite of unity. So while we're evolving to oneness, we're looking for separation and trying to consolidate it into love, into unity. And so wherever there is a lie, it's separation, it's rejection, it's shame. So this person has to find the truth. That's a lie. The lie is that I'm not worthy of being a leader and I deserve punishment because I failed my people. No, that's not really a true state. And it seems to be that this body or my client is somehow significantly connected to this timeline because that theme is still alive in their body today. And where they reject leadership, they're afraid of taking on responsibilities of things. And they have this inherent belief of unworthiness and a feeling that they'll mess it up in a big way. And so here they are living out this other timeline where that was a really big emotional decision and a statement that they believe to be true. That's the stain that needs reincarnation. That's the element that needs to be reincarnated to be brought back into truth. The truth is, I made mistakes, or
Mhm.
I was overrun. I was at my capacity. The same way a beautiful parent would come along to a child and say, that's not true. You're still a beautiful soul. You still deserve love, and you are capable of being a leader. We want them to forget the shame and let go of the burden of judgment. And so we're doing that in other timelines. So the themes are way more important. The feelings, the emotions, the lies, the false statements around deaths, these are important. That's what's in these people's bodies, the clients' bodies and minds, that plagues humanity. And so that we need to return to truth. This is the transmutation of fear into love, darkness into light.
That really resonates with me because I have had some past life experiences, but I took them very literally and
Yeah.
not from the theme perspective. And if
Mm.
I look at it now from the theme perspective, it's very clear.
Did you have a therapist guide you for that?
No, I mean, I'm happy to share part of it is I have traveled to Egypt many times, like
Mm.
multiple times. And I was in the Egyptian museum and I had like, I can even feel it right now as I talk about it. I had such an overwhelming feeling that there was this like breastplate, like this gold breastplate that it belonged to me. Like so strong. I can't even explain. Like it's like this was years and years ago, but it's so clear to me. The feeling even is so clear to me. And I didn't understand why I had this like this pull always to Egypt. Nothing. I'm come from a background that's like Irish, Swiss, and British. Like not no Egyptian at all in me. And then I had a genetic test done, one of those genetic tests, and it turns out that I'm part Egyptian, and nowhere in my family do we know where that comes from. So I really thought of it as literal, and like I dream often about Egypt. It's very strange. Like I dream but I'm in a body in like it's like I'm going through life in Egypt. But what came to me actually just now through this conversation is there's a theme for me of feminine power. And I remember it standing there, seeing that breastplate. It was the feeling was of like stepping into feminine power. So
Yeah.
that's my past
Yes.
life.
Thank you for sharing that. And look, by the way, this happens automatically. So what I didn't realize in hypnosis, I thought it was just technique that drops people in. It's the voice. And so what I found and what people in psychic realms were telling me is that the longer you hear my voice, it starts to open up the veil. So memories of other timelines will,
No.
and you just say, I'm not surprised that it's coming up. And so if you were willing, you could literally just talk to me without even being in hypnosis, and more information and emotions, visions will start to come out. The only thing blocking it would be your mind in doubt, but it's open the fact that you're hearing my voice. It's the voice that opens it. Yeah.
Because Boris, I have not thought about that
Yeah.
experience in Egypt since it happened. And then I knew about but I have not thought about it until this moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why either, but one time I went to a drop off my partner at the time to a psychic. I wasn't really into that stuff, but I dropped her off. I stayed in the car park and she came out, this psychic came out and she asked to meet me, and she looked at me and she pointed to my forehead and she said, "You've got the marking." Oh, I said, what's this mark? I thought, rubbing my forehead, thinking I've got something on there. And she said, "No, you've been given permission to look into people's past lives. It just happens. All your psychology stuff was just a stepping stone. You were always going to do this." And she didn't even know, but that was with the time where it just started happening in hypnosis. So there's something around that where it just opens. And so, yeah, the gateway does open by pure resonance. But look, okay, so the Egypt thing, Egypt comes up so much with many clients. Why? The good question is why? it was such a rich history with a lot of emotions, a lot of technology, a lot of knowledge. We were quite advanced, more than what we were taught in schools. And so because of
Mm.
its heightened consciousness, that's, imagine you as a 2026 person would have bigger signatures or entangled connections to timelines with big consciousness, so where people were very evolved, right? And so there's this there's this blip in time around Egypt where a lot of people have memories and connections to. So the person itself, or once we get over the idea that I was there and yeah, yes, you were, but you don't have to over-identify with it as I am here and I was there.
No.
No, it's not yours to own in any singular way. It's like the Earth's memories, and your DNA, Kathleen, happens to be optimized. It has specific DNA in it that holds more connection to a specific lifetime there. And there would be correlations between your mind and her mind. Now, what that means for you is you would hold both her traumas, her hesitations, her belief systems, what she believes she could do, possibly, her knowledge, her wisdom, her experiences are all in your DNA as well. Like many other lifetimes, but you would have access more to that particular one if you were open to exploring it more and more.
Hmm. Fascinating. Well, now I feel like I need to explore it more and more. That's for sure. That's
Yeah. And
amazing.
I
Yeah.
guarantee you some of her fears or traumas would be yours that you experience in this life. You'd be sharing that mind, because it's your responsibility to turn her, if there was any falsehoods upon her death, something around that, a false idea, a traumatic death, maybe, who knows? But wherever there is a dense emotion, so fearful emotion, that's the density that seeks truth.
Mm.
It seeks reincarnation. So it comes into your body, so you can play out the themes or the sequence of her life in some different way, but the themes would be similar. So you could get to that point where she failed or where she held this false belief, and then you would go one step further into saying, well, maybe that's not true. Maybe I can still do this. Maybe I can actually speak my voice now. Maybe she was crucified. Many people have these memories of being crucified during the witch trials, or the Crusades, being burnt because of their gift. Mainly women, having memories of being a medicine woman or
Yeah.
someone that worked plants, or being called a witch. And their body still holds the feeling of, if I speak my truth, I will be hurt, I will be judged, I'll be crucified. And so it's your right and your responsibility now to say, I'm safe. I'm actually allowed to speak my truth. I'm actually allowed to act out what I know to be true. I am safe. To not let the body believe the timelines of the past, whether it's a year ago or 1,000 years ago, it doesn't matter. It's like, don't let fears govern the body. Go one step further and act out your truth. That's the purpose of life.
Gosh, I have so many more questions I could ask that we could do like a double episode. I do have one more question, but I feel like I'm opening like a big door with this question. So I'll just ask it. But one of the things that I see in my practice is I work with quite a few Indigenous women in my practice. And we have this very horrible history in Canada that's called residential schools, where many Indigenous people were taken from their communities and put into residential schools and stripped of their language and their spiritual practices. And what I see across several of my Indigenous clients is that they have memories of their grandparents. So they're not their memories. They're not their, like in this life, their own life, but memories of their grandparents they are experiencing. And so when you just said that about past life, how, I might have some trauma from like from the person I was many lives ago. Does that apply then also to like genetics, so familial traumas? And I believe it does, and I've read research that it does on the scientific, but I'm just curious of your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So intergenerational trauma, you know, in psychology, we've only just done it. We've looked at it as a possibility, and its existence by behavioral passage. So just behavior creates behavior, alcoholism behavior as a method of self-regulation is just passed on through behavioral patterns. So that's one way of, say, wearing your great grandfather's trauma, or it's through sometimes the genetics. They say in genetics you have a predisposition for something, but that's as far as it got. What we didn't allow for in biopsychology, in bioreductive materialist philosophy that governed the whole medical world, is that they didn't allow for that you could actually have access to images, feelings, ideas, visceral memories, real memories of your ancestors that you've never met, and not being passed down through stories either. Right. So there's not cryptomnesia where
Right.
they call where you've heard a story and you've forgotten and now you're just remembering the story. No, because that method or that philosophy says you can only learn through your five senses, the empirical method. That's an epistemological argument. You can only learn through physical experience. You can't just acquire knowledge of a life 200 years ago that you never heard about or not even connected to in any physical way. But now we know, we've got plenty of evidence for it, and I'm happy to show anyone where to go for it. But we now know, yes, you can actually wear the mind and the memories, the feelings, the emotions of your ancestors in a big way. Some are not even genetically connected. So yes, it's heavier in your genetic lineage, but you will still hold DNA of bodies that you are not even genetically connected in your blood lineage. You can have complete crossovers as well.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I see it in my practice. It's wild to me.
Oh, well, I had a
Yeah.
client that was like directly connecting with his great great grandfather, the life of that one. And he started calling himself Jack. And I'm like, Jack, maybe it's a past life. I don't know where this is going. But turns out his great great grandfather was this person. And he started going through the things that he was doing. So he was a perpetrator of pretty bad things, where the family trauma started with alcohol abuse and then doing things to people. And so it's like he got to see from the great grandfather's eyes. He was in his body, seeing things, and doing things. And so it's like whether he was already connected to it is the assumption prior to the hypnosis. But at least in hypnosis, there's evidence that his mind is able to be connected to the great grandfather's mind. And so there is a passage of these ideas, memories, and it's in your body. Once we just get over that and accept that, like, yep, this is a thing, then we can just get on with it. The getting on with the part is look at the themes, right? What am I meant to do? What seems to be the right thing to do? Not to get caught up in the magic of it all, but to transmute the dark into light. That's it. It's where is the lies?
Right.
Okay, what needs virtue? To bring heaven on earth is virtue, forgiveness, letting go. What can I do differently, to break cycles, to feel the impulse to do this, which is the ancestral lineage of trauma, the impulse and the reactivity part, the animalistic part. What can I become conscious of? So to become aware of, and then choose, which is the divine spark in a human, is the ability to choose. So to choose something different, to choose virtue, to choose love, to choose maybe even boundary setting, to choose whatever, but I'm going to do something differently is the path of every human. And yes, it's yours. It's your father's, it's your mother's, it's your grandparents, your great grandparents. It's 1,000-year-old Egyptian woman. It's all of it, right? So it's like we eventually just have to accept that we are connected to other lifetimes, and it's okay, right? It's not scary as we think, but just keep track of what the task is. So what? keep that in mind. So what does it mean for me? Be connected to it. Access of knowledge, wisdom, but also to resolve falsehoods, traumas into something loving and beautiful. Let it go.
Well, I think we will end there. Boris, where can people find you? Do we have to go all the way to Perth, Australia to see you?
No,
How can we find you?
everything's online these days. So yeah, people are sometimes still surprised that hypnosis can work online. Yeah, all you need is my voice. So people can access a session still.
Clearly.
Yeah, at boriswalter.com. So just my name, boriswalter.com. And so you can book sessions there. I'm gonna have to curb it pretty soon with because there's a lot of people there, and my time's really just spread out. But it's still probably going to be available there for the general public for probably another month or 2 months, I'd say. It's coming close to that point where I'm going to have to get a bit more strict with my time. But at the moment, it's still accessible to anyone in the world. Just jump on the website. Hey, I want 1 hour or I want 3 hours with Boris. And we just jump on here like we're doing this. And you might tell me a little bit. You might tell me nothing. It doesn't really matter what I know, which is funny if you're a therapist. This is a complete different way of working where I don't need to know anything about your past or your symptoms. I can simply just say, all right, this has nothing to do with me personally, but I'm just going to act as a gateway for you to meet yourself and just trust the process, have faith, just know that you're safe. And I'll just guide you into a hypnotic state and you meet your higher self or your better versions of you or wherever your traumas lie. And you know how to heal yourself. You just have to have faith and trust that you will go exactly where you need to go. And I'm just here to hold the stability of the connection. That's all. It's simple as that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure speaking.
You're welcome. Oh, I should probably say on they can see me on Instagram as well. Boris Walter Official. But that's where you'll see little clips of podcasts and stuff if people just want not long form podcasts, but more short little clips. They can see stuff on there. Or other podcasts like the Hard Yards and stuff like that. Yeah, that's about it for now.
Okay. Perfect. We will also put that all in the show notes, and I'll just wrap it up by saying thank you all for joining Sisters in Sobriety, and we will see you next week.
This was Sisters in Sobriety.
Thank you for listening and being with us today.
If you want to learn more about sobriety and meet your community, find us at sistersinsobriety.substack.com.
Are you a sister in sobriety? Then reach out on social media. We'd love to hear from you.
If you're feeling generous, leave us 5 stars and a review and follow us wherever you listen.
You'll never miss an episode. Until next time.